Good afternoon. I'm Carissa Chuka with Results Repeat. Thank you for joining our webinar today, Best Practices for Leading a Virtual Team. As many of you know, Results Repeat has been named a best place to work multiple times. As you may not know, we maintained our entire team throughout the COVID pandemic. So we're excited to talk to you today and have our Director of Operations, Amy Cheatham, talk with you today about how we lead a team remotely successfully, even in challenging times. So you'll notice today everyone is muted. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, please put those into the chat box and we will have a Q&A at the end of our presentation today. So without any further ado, I will hand it over to Amy and then I'll come back at the end for the Q&A.
Awesome. Thanks, Carissa. First, want to thank everybody that's on. I know, kind of taking time out of your day to jump on a webinar seems like things that are happening all the time, but I really do appreciate your time. And I was really excited to kind of put my thinking cap on and really come up with some strategies and tips that I hopefully can share with things that we've experience here at Results Repeat and help anybody that's new to the virtual environment or with going back to the office and doing a hybrid environment, kind of some things that could be helpful. So I think kind of to warm things up and break the ice a little bit, I'd like to just start with telling you maybe some fun facts about me, then moving into kind of my path of making my way to Results Repeat, and then what my role as Director of Operations entails, and then I'll jump in for the tips. So some fun facts about me. I was born and raised in Philadelphia, so if any accents come out, that's why. I am currently outside of Philadelphia, where I live with my family, my husband Vern, and my two kids. My son Connor, who is going to be 7, and he's kind of vital to my Results Repeat story. He's in 1st grade, and my daughter Adeline, who is going to be 5 and starting kindergarten next year. Time has flown. Kind of moving more into my education, I did graduate from Penn State University, which a lot of Pennsylvanians have, but a unique thing is I did graduate from the College of Agriculture, which is an interesting fact. So I got to, have really cool classes with people that were in the forestry majors and turf soil management and food management and things of those nature. So it was a very interesting time at Penn State. I learned a lot, had a very diverse major. It was called environmental resource management. So it was kind of like setting me up for success for a lot of different things. But outside of college, when I graduated, my first job was at a civil engineering firm that specialized in municipal engineering. So I got to work in wastewater, which was extremely interesting and kind of led me through a lot of learning experiences, and really found out early on I had no passion for engineering. Kind of turned gears and I started to pursue my certification in teaching. And in 2010 I started teaching at a small private school outside of Philadelphia, and I was the science teacher. And interesting fact is I did a lot of really cool things with my students. I got a lot of great opportunities. I loved teaching and I loved what I did. And 9 years ago today, I took a group of students and we were kissing the Blarney Stone in Ireland today. So 9 years ago. So got to do some really cool, exciting things. Traveled a lot with my students, went to Yosemite, camped on Assateague Island, did lots of cool things. But why did I leave teaching? So when I promised Connor would work his way in here. So I had my son in 2014. And in, that summer was a lot of him and hauling back and forth of what my next steps were. Was I going to go back to teaching? And Ellen, who was our CEO, I've known her for some time. And she approached me and said, "Hey, I'm starting this new company. Do you want to help me? You can work part-time. You could be home with Connor and, just really have some flexibility." So I jumped at the opportunity. Ellen, has great companies, and I've, been involved in res page for other company back in the start doing intern work. So figured why not. So took the jump and kind of fast forward through my time here at Results Repeat, which is going on 7 years. I've kind of dabbled in everything we do and kind of found my path to operations over time. I've raised my hand for anything that we've ever needed. I've taken on the books and payroll, HR, onboarding new people, everything we kind of really need. And within the last few years, kind of taken on the role of director of operations. So, kind of what I do on a daily is work with all of the team leads more than anything, but work with everybody here at Results Repeat to make sure they have what they need to perform our services, and also kind of act as a problem solver, an intermediary, and be kind of that person always thinking of the next step, to make us more efficient. And at the end of the day, we want to be more profitable. So that's kind of my goal and expectations as being here at Results Repeat, in my role. So I really do enjoy working with everybody here at Results Repeat, and I love waking up every day and getting to work. Some people dread it, but I just like can't wait to, help everybody out. So kind of moving into, move my slide here. We'll get started with my kind of strategies and tips I've come up with, for best managing people within, a virtual environment. Um, Kind of sitting down and working through how to break this out, I kind of came up with four main best practices, or like titling of best practices. So I'll start with the first one, and it's be accessible and consistent. So what does that mean? Um, in an office, and prior to working at Results Repeat, I was able to like go down the hall and talk to my co-teacher, or get knock on my manager's door and say, hey, can we talk? When you're in a virtual environment, it's really hard to know what everybody's up to. Are they available? Are they able to set up a meeting? Do they have other things going on? So being accessible is really important. And how we've at Results Repeat, kind of to give some transparency to accessibility, we have shared calendars. So at any time I could pop on, we use Google Workspace, and in the calendar feature, I can pop on and look at Chris's calendar and say, oh gosh, she's back to back today, but I really need to talk to her, and kind of work out, some time to get on her calendar. And, kind of working that. We do use chat functionality. So we use Slack here at Results Repeat. Other companies might use, Teams or other chat functions, but I think that Slack is really important here at Results Repeat, and we use it to get that kind of immediate, question out there, or ask for help or do anything of that nature. But kind of the accessibility with that, and I'm really bad at this, but a lot of people within our team are really good. But kind of going back to the days of AOL Instant Messenger and putting up those away messages and making sure people know, hey, yeah, I'm on, but I'm on a call, or I had to run out, or reach me on my cell. So kind of using those functionalities to make your accessibility more transparent. Another thing, and I'm looking at my notes, that's why I keep looking on the side here so I don't forget anything. But I've kind of went back and forth with a couple of the team leads here at Results Repeat of maybe setting up standing office hours. Sometimes people get a lot of questions in a day, or at certain times of the month, but maybe kind of setting aside specific time, blocking out your calendar, or having these standing office hours where people know that they can get you on Slack, or immediately reach you. Those are all kind of things that could be worked into your accessibility as well. It's also really hard, and working with a variety of people, and in different parts of their career and different confidence levels, and kind of understanding where they're coming from when they have to approach meeting with a manager or setting time aside with somebody. It's a little intimidating. So especially if people are super busy, and they maybe project this kind of thing of, oh, they're always so busy, I don't want to bother them. So kind of setting that transparency, but also maybe having a standards or like a procedure around how you want people to contact you, how you want people to set up time on your calendar. That could really kind of ease that intimidation factor and give people opportunity to have transparency and the best way to reach out to you. So those are all things that we've kind of incorporated into results repeat, but some things that, kind of work, and it all really depends on your need. Okay, so the second thing seems really simple, but listen, um, we're all so very distracted. It doesn't matter if you're in an office or you're sitting at home. There's a lot of distractions, and especially with COVID, it just has added distractions. So with listening, I've kind of set aside some tips of, really making sure before you sit down with a team member, no matter if it's like, an assistant up to the CEO, taking your cell phone, hiding it across the room, making sure your Slack's closed out, your email and all the tabs are closed out, doing a full screen for the call, going to video call if you need to. I know that's always kind of like last resort, especially with the fatigue we're all feeling with video calls, but kind of really making sure your attention is fully on that conversation. A big thing that it doesn't affect me, but I know other people, having an Apple Watch. Um, it's always buzzing, telling you, somebody texted you or you have an alert or stand up and move or whatever it does. But kind of maybe taking your watch off and putting it with your phone and just really being present in the moment. Sounds really simple, but it's super easy to get distracted. I know that at times I get distracted. So just really kind of focusing on the conversation is super important. And like I said, defaulting to video call when you need to, but kind of giving people that time, and that face-to-face time is super important, especially in a virtual environment. Third thing, and I'm kind of cruising through these, I hope time-wise I'm good, but communication. Again, another kind of simple, thing, but it's interesting, working virtually and, having to communicate in different ways that are different than a face-to-face kind of office experience, and kind of understanding that everybody's communication styles are different. It's come up to me. I'll use an example of myself. When I did start with Ellen back in 2014, I was used to working in an office. I was used to working in a collaborative environment where you're meeting people face to face. There wasn't much emailing or messaging. So when I started working for Ellen, I would get emails from her and I'd like read the email. And I'm like, oh my gosh, is she mad at me? Did I do something wrong? And it was just, very direct and concise of what needed to be done. There was not much context outside of that, but I was just really thrown off. And kind of over time, I had to start understanding what her communication style was and how she presented information. And that's just a personal example that I have. And over time, working with so many other people, other people are more fluffy, other people are more direct. People like emojis or explanation points, or, everybody's communication style is very different. So, kind of walking into a situation, especially if you're leading a group or leading a team or even working within your team, understanding that everybody's different, and working through that. Like if you're thrown off by somebody's communication, bring it up, be transparent, be like, I wasn't sure what you meant. So just kind of adding, that into the back of your head when, especially if you're used to working in an office. And when you are communicating, I think it's really important, to be decisive and clear, especially when you're communicating very important information. I know I follow all these different accounts on social media where, you have the people and they're like, this could have been an email, when people are in this meeting fatigue. And that's true. Like a lot of things can just be, a simple email, but really understanding how to concisely give information to your team, that's really important as well when working in a virtual environment. All right, so last point, and this is kind of where there's been a lot of flexibility within results repeat, is establishing expectations. So with working virtually, everybody here at Results Repeat on their first day, they get a document that's our virtual work policy. Um, it's kind of molded over time. Things have changed, and I think even to this day we have to make some adjustments, especially with COVID and everything going on. But really, kind of laying out there for your team what you expect from them when they're working from home. I know a lot of people are probably going to continue on working from home, even if COVID's out of the picture, because it's just people feel more efficient, more comfortable in that. But with establishing expectations, our policies work through things like working hours. What are the expectations around working hours? Are you expected to work between certain hours? Are you expected to work a certain amount of hours? Is there any flexibility with that time? For us, a lot of our teams, you have to work when our clients are, be available for our clients. So really laying out what that means. And if it really does involve like a real breakdown of here's an example of what your working hours should be, then really doing that so people understand that that's what's expected of them. um, Another thing, and this is I just kind of doing some research and seeing what other people are experiencing with work from home situations, is the idea of where you're working. I was reading something, and this woman, because of being able to work from home, she decided to move, and she moved to like a different state. And now her company's talking about like going back to the office. And she's like, well, I kind of moved. So really kind of laying out there where people are able to work from is something you might want to consider as well. We know at Results Repeat, we're kind of established in a few states. Working outside of those states is a little difficult, and obviously, like it'd probably be really difficult if somebody decides they want to move to Hawaii and work for us. So, kind of laying out what your expectations are there. Next, and probably most important, with moving to more of this video call culture, I guess you could say, even before COVID, I don't feel like I've been on so many video calls, even with working virtually. Um, so, kind of putting out expectations of what you want your team to do during video calls. Do you have a dress code? Is it okay to be casual? Um, what do you expect as a background? Do you want people to be sitting in an office? Do you like, or set up a kind of like I have like a setup where you have this backdrop? Do you use like the fuzzy backdrops on Zoom? I don't know, but like kind of setting out those expectations is going to be really important when you are on these calls with clients or even internal calls. Like if you have a mess behind you, it's distracting. And you kind of want to make sure that people understand that they can do that. If it's maybe giving them a little budget for their at home office to kind of set something up, that could be an idea as well. And then last is the like kind of really hot button topic, and that's childcare. So, I started the conversation with, putting out there that I have two children, and that I lovingly refer to them as my little coworkers on certain days when they're here doing virtual learning, if that has happens for any reason. So, kind of laying out your expectations for parents or caregivers within this document. Do have kind of, maybe for us, I think we've done really good job of understanding what people are experiencing and working with them and being flexible, but also setting up that line of communication. So there's maybe some standards around the communication. Hey, kids home today, just understand, from this hours, from between these hours, I'm probably going to be a little spotty with being able to jump on a call or do anything like that. So just really establishing that communication expectation around that. It again is a hot button topic. Nobody wants to say you can't have your kids at home, because that just in these times especially is just impossible. So really having that flexibility, laying out like what your expectations are, and really making sure that they meld to your culture and to your pillars. And that's really important when it comes to laying out those expectations. So I talked a lot. I don't know even what time it is. Oh, good. We have 10 minutes for some Q&A. So I'm open for questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. And you're right on time, so no worries there. So a question from one of our attendees: what are some recommendations to encourage support and collaboration with your team?
So some recommendations to encourage support and or to support collaboration with your team. Encourage support
Yeah.
collaboration.
Mhm.
I think like some of our teams, like our SEO team, for instance, they do a weekly stand-up call. So during their call, I have not been on one of them. I've not been invited. Heads up, but I know during their call, they give everybody an opportunity to kind of bring up topics of things that interest them, kind of building that relationship of collaboration with the team of, you know, sharing ideas and having that set time, I think maybe is important. Um, so kind of setting up an environment for your team where they have that comfort and ability to collaborate is really key. I don't know if that kind of hit the question or not.
Yeah, I think so. Making sure everyone has a voice, having that carved out a lot of time, those things are obviously super important and in practice here at Results Repeat. Um, Obviously, you mentioned communication is key, especially when you're working with a remote team. Do all leaders, can you talk about how our leaders, I guess, because I do know what we do, but have regular one-on-ones with our team members? How do, or explain how we keep communication flowing all the time?
No, sure. And yeah, and that was actually part of my notes that I think I skipped over, with that first point of like consistency. And it kind of melds with the communication aspect of things is, we encourage all of our leaders here at Results Repeat and teams to establish one-on-ones with all of their team members. And depending on like making sure it's either weekly or bi-weekly and having that set time and really sticking to it. I know for me, like Tuesdays are my like one-on-one day, so really just kind of being in a mindset to be ready to collaborate with collaborate with your team and collaborate with other people, is really important. And just sticking to it and being consistent and really valuing that time with your team members. Like I said, like with the whole listen part of my tips is just really devote that time. It's worked out really well for us at Results Repeat. A lot of great ideas and kind of solutions and, um, just communication has come from having those set one-on-ones.
Yeah, I love having one-on-ones, even if you don't have something to talk about. Just knowing that you've got that time carved out on the calendar to touch base, even on a personal level, can be really helpful, especially when you're working remotely.
Oh, totally. And
Um,
I just real quick, I always use like the first, depending, if I've touched base with this person recently or not, but like the first few minutes to just kind of like say, hey, how are you making out? What's going on? And kind of pick up on some conversations you might have had before. It is like you want to be connected and personally connected to everybody. So it's also that time too is great.
yeah, exactly. So tell us how Results Repeat tackles hiring remotely. We recently added a whole bunch of new staff members, and before the pandemic, even though we've always been a remote company, we would hire in person. So we would, have people in for an interview at our co-working space. But obviously, this past year, we've hired quite a few people remotely that we haven't yet met in person. So you want to talk a little bit about how we tackled that?
Sure. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. It's been interesting kind of we always have hired remotely but then had the opportunity to meet people, depending on the position, either meeting them in person during the interviewing process and depending on their location, but not having that opportunity to onboard people in person has been an interesting challenge. Um, but we have done it before, so it is kind of, we're in a position now with COVID that we can't meet in person. And how that's affected the interviewing process is we've tried to really streamline that onboarding and really make sure that in the onboarding process, um, we haven't changed much about our interviewing process or how we approach candidates, but during the onboarding we try to make it as seamless as possible, really more communication, touching base, making sure people have everything they need on day one. I've had to operationally find some workarounds about getting people computers. As a small company, we don't have an IT team or anything of that nature. So, kind of finding ways for people to best get the equipment they need to perform their jobs. And then, yeah, like we've hired, like, for instance, Tom and David are down in Florida. So, when we brought them aboard, it was onboarding remotely, but we, kind of worked through it. Um, but yeah, those are a couple things. I think onboarding is very important, and making sure people feel that you're ready for them and that they have everything they need. We've had a couple of hiccups, but I think we've done a pretty good job with our, new people.
Awesome. So there's a couple more questions and a couple more minutes. So I'll ask you these questions from the attendees. What are some tips? And this is a great question. What are some tips for new leaders of virtual teams? Maybe you never led a virtual team before, always worked in person, and now you're leading a team of people, maybe you've never met, like I said, with hiring this year.
Yeah, that's that's tough. Um, I think, like, on top of maybe the kind of tips I pulled in with the four main points, I think it's just really being open to having virtual coffees, maybe setting aside, time. And I know we've done internally, we've done, or at Results Repeat, we've done like a trivia hour. And I think, beginning of pandemic and like mid-pandemic, it was really like people were all gung-ho and on board, and then there was this like fatigue. But I think as a new leader, leading virtually, it's kind of finding out ways to connect with your team, and it's not in, like, you can't take people out to lunch, so maybe you have like a virtual lunch where you send them a Grubhub card and, say, hey, order something and we'll sit down and we'll have lunch together. It's kind of just being creative in how you connect with your team, and depending on the company culture, has a lot to do with it too. How open do you want to be? How, personal do you want to make it with your team? It all depends on, what you have set up as a culture too. That's tough.
Right. Yeah. No, and I think same tips apply for in-person leaders as apply for virtual leaders, just need to be even more communicative. You touched on a couple, this was the last question, a couple fun ideas for building team building activities virtually. So a couple things that we've done. If you want to talk a little bit about fun ideas that we've had to build our virtual teams, that would be great.
Sure. Yeah. So we did a virtual like trivia that Greg put together from our web team, or director of web development, and it was really fun. We actually had the more junior people in each of the groups kind of lead up the teams, so it was a great opportunity to kind of get them comfortable with being a leader of like a trivia game. But that was really fun. We done a happy hour at some point too. That was kind of, a fun time to just kind of touch base and be more casual, and check in with everybody over a drink, or what we would do normally in a happy hour. We also, this year, we sent everybody at Christmas time or holiday time a swag box. So that we found a company called Swag Up. Everybody likes getting some, goodies in the mail. So we send some goodies in the mail, like a hoodie and some socks and, a mug, just kind of like as an appreciation of, all the things that our team are doing and adjusting to. And like I said, like just virtual coffees, like touching base, sending out, like when people are doing a good job, sending some gift cards to people. Like, we try not to overdo it, but there's a lot of things we could probably still incorporate to get people, more involved. I know Greg mentioned maybe doing another trivia night. That'd be fun.
That would be awesome. Well, that wraps up our webinar for today. So Amy, thank you so much for your insights and your experience and sharing it with all of us. Unless anyone has any, or if you have any wrapping up comments, we will go ahead and close out for today.
Sure. No, thank you, everybody. And I know a lot of people from Results Repeat were on the call, and I really appreciate your time. And all of you are so important to me. And I thank you for the work you do every day. Thanks,
Yeah,
guys.
thank you everybody so much. Have a great afternoon. Thanks, Amy.
All right, bye, guys.
Bye.